Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today is an exciting day because we get to check out some of the Wave 3 Beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaur Series figures, or at least one today anyway. And today we're going to check out the Albertosaurus, which is definitely one of my favorites from the line overall. It's one of my favorite Tyrannosaur species to have ever existed. Ever since I was young, I had this it was like a placemat sort of thing that had a whole bunch of different dinosaurs on it, and there were these big, intimidating Albertosaurus walking out of the bushes in the background of it, and I was always just so mesmerized by their appearance and the, unique head sculpt and appearance that they have in the head. And it's awesome to now have a Beasts of the Mesozoic version of the Albertosaurus here to add to my collection and check out with you guys. I do want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to David Silva for sending this over to me a little bit early rather than waiting for the entire wave to ship. He's allowed me the pleasure of checking a few of them out a little bit early, as he usually does. And you can see the box art is really nice. We've got the window area there where you can see the figure itself. We've also got some beautiful artwork over here. The species name, again, Tyrannosaur Series, the fact that this is 1/18th scale, and the Beasts of the Mesozoic logo up on the top. Same thing on the side as usual, where we just have the species name and Beasts of the Mesozoic logo. You're going to see almost the same thing, and then again, definitely the same thing up on the top. But here on the back of the box, you can yet again see another shot of the dinosaur, of the figure itself, as well as kind of a checklist down here for Wave 3, which we will have reviews up of each and every one of those as we continue to move through these. So let's pop this box open and check it out. So first of all, we have our assembly instructions. Again, I always say this, no matter how many of these figures I've reviewed, I will always tell you that, especially if it's your first time ordering one of these, you really need to pay attention to this stuff. Definitely read it. You don't want to damage your figure when you're trying to assemble it or reassemble it. If you take pieces off and you want to put it back together, you definitely want to read this and, again, pay attention to how you would assemble the tail and legs and all of that fun stuff. We've also got the card, and the card looks really, really nice. You can see we've got a beautiful image of an Albertosaurus, actually a few Albertosaurus, and they look to be kind of chasing down some Pachyrhinosaurus, which also seem to have the Beasts of the Mesozoic colors on them, so I always love the fact that we kind of, include two different Beasts of the Mesozoic figures into one card. That is pretty cool. And then if you turn it around, you can see a nice shot here on the back of the figure itself, as well as the species name and some information on the figure and all of that fun stuff. On top of that, you've also got yourself a base, and you can see we've got a really nice base, but it's pretty much like your standard, your trademark almost at this point, Beasts of the Mesozoic base. We also have the alternate legs, because you have the legs that are on currently, which are a little less articulated. You can switch them out for these legs, which do sport more articulation, just to allow, again, a little extra posability. And of course, you've got two, you don't just have one. It is important to note that. On top of that, I haven't taken them out because I don't usually use them. Sometimes I do, but not too often. But you do have alternate feet, which you can switch the feet out that we have on the dinosaur again for these alternate ones with different positioning for the toes and stuff. So if you are interested in doing that, again, you just want to add a little bit more to your scene that you are creating, these are always fun to have. And then, of course, our Albertosaurus itself, and that is an absolutely beautiful looking, let's move this stuff over here, beautiful looking figure. Man, is that ever nice looking. First of all, of course, the sculpt is fantastic, but the paint apps on this one are actually really nice. I thought they looked pretty good from the, prototype images, but they somehow look even better in person, and it's actually a really nice looking color scheme that they've chosen for this one. I would say that this might be my favorite overall when it comes to these Tyrannosaur series releases. There is a strong chance that that is the case, because this thing, again, it's a species that I've been in love with since I was young, but it's also a really nice looking take on it as always. So let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look, and we'll check it out from there. So as we start up here at the head sculpt of our Albertosaurus, straight away, one thing you'll of course notice is the fact that we have lips for our Albertosaurus. That's always a welcome addition to any Tyrannosaur model nowadays. You can also see that, again, we have really nice looking scale detail, as well as a lot of variation of color. There's definitely a lot going on the face of this figure. First of all, when it comes to the skin texture, you can see some really nice finer scaling there in the palate area, kind of up near the eye socket and stuff. But as you move down closer to the jawline, you do find some larger scales there. You can also see some larger scales on the lower jaw here and there. Again, just moving through the lower jaw, you can see so much variation to the sizes of the scales, which looks really nice. There's also, again, tons of variation of color. We've got this nice darker green kind of running up from the snout, up along the upper part of the head. You've also got this lighter variation of green. You have this sort of off-white. We have a light brown that kind of stripes down here and runs over here on the tip of the lower jaw. You've also got this kind of variation of brown, which is a little bit different than that. You've got a little spot of yellow right there, as well as some black that kind of moves up around the eye and then patterns down, and then a different variation of brown leading back from behind the eye there. On top of that, you can also see we've got a light brown up here on the top and then a nice darker brown wash that has been applied so that we highlight all of the area of detail up there, especially the trademark Albertosaurus crests, and that all looks really good. Again, the paintwork is super nice, super smooth, and very naturalistic. On top of that, I also noticed there's a dark wash. You can really see it right here coming into play on the figure, which is also a great thing. We've got ourselves some red eyes for our Albertosaurus, as well as a nice black pupil, and you can see them shining very nicely as we have a gloss coat over the eyes, giving them that nice realistic eye shine. The insides of the nostrils are also highlighted with a darker tone of color. Of course, we've got ourselves an articulated jaw, and as you move into the articulated jaw, you can see the inside of the mouth looks great. All of the teeth are sculpted individually. They're all painted perfectly, and with the nice gloss coat they do have a 100% genuine, realistic look to them. Like, they look like real living animals' teeth, which is pretty impressive. You can see the same for the lower jaw. Again, zero sloppiness when it comes to the paintwork. We've also got the tongue sculpted out in there and painted with a different shade of like a pinkish tone. The tongue, yes, does articulate, so you've got a little extra articulation in that area. Then you have like a lighter pinkish tone moving through the majority of the inside of the mouth, as well as what looks to be maybe a little bit of like a purplish wash that we can see there on the inside of the mouth, especially on the upper side. That gloss coat, again, giving it that nice saliva-like look moving through the entire inside of the mouth, and the fine detail is absolutely fantastic on the inside of the mouth of the figure. And you can't even see back there in the throat, we actually have a much darker tone for the throat of the dinosaur. So just continuing to give you so much when it comes to the different variations of color added. As you move here up into the top of the head, you can see this nice black tone running along the spinal column. You also have a darker variation of a green, some really vibrant scale detail as well. Then you have the black and that brown kind of moving down here along the side of the neck. We've got the ears sculpted out and highlighted with a darker tone. We have a different variation of greens, picking up right here, kind of switches out from this darker green to this lighter green, which actually appears to almost have like a different variation of green included in there as well, in kind of almost like a wash-like fashion. And then as you can see up here, you also lose that black for a moment as it transitions to a brown, but then we kind of pick the black back up and it starts with like a striping effect moving down along the course of the neck. You've got some really nice skin wrinkles and creases and stuff as you move down here into this area of the articulated neck. You can see, again, this is kind of like a floater section as far as the articulation goes. You do have some very, very smooth articulation in the neck. You can get some really nice turns in the neck for this one, and it is nice to see that David Silva has really worked to get the articulation a little bit smoother in the neck. In the earlier figures like the Tyrannosaurs and stuff, like the T-Rex, I mean, the articulation was a little bit stiff in the neck of those figures. Not so much in these newer ones. You can see you can get really nice posability leading up, not too far. The one area where we still don't have too much is going in a downward position, because it doesn't really go down any further than that I can figure out. But left and right, absolutely a lot of really nice posability. And again, upward you can go a little ways, but not super far. But as you move down, you can see we have this light sort of off-white tone. We also transition to a brown, a nice light brown, and then you've got some beautiful blues for the throat of the Albertosaurus, and that looks really nice. I'm absolutely a very big fan of the usage of the blues in the throat of the figure. As you move down here into the body, you have a very different look, I think, to the skin texture and the scale detail, but it looks really cool. But it has a very kind of a reptilian sort of a look, almost, say, slightly kind of lizard-like as far as the way that the scale detail looks. We also, again, have quite a bit of variation to the coloration. We've got the greens, we've got the browns, the off-whites, a darker variation of brown kind of leading up and patterning up into those off-whites, and then you've also got up here on the back that darker brown as well as the blacks kind of patterning through, which the patterning is really neat looking. Definitely a very flashy patterning that we have moving along the back. You also have these lighter tones that kind of show up here sporadically, very briefly. They actually only show up there and then they're gone again. But as you move down here, of course, into the very nice, very small arms of our Albertosaurus, you can see they are primarily that darker brown, but there is a little bit of that lighter tone in there as well. And we, of course, can move the arms forward and back. You can actually keep going with them if you want. Get them up pretty high. They do come out away from the body a little bit, about that far. And then you also have the elbow, which can go in and out very nicely. Yes, it can also swivel. And we also have the articulation of the wrist, which can go in and out. And of course, I would imagine swivel as well. Potentially it's kind of swiveling with the elbow, but I would imagine it swivels. We also have nicely painted nails with a nice glossy black as well. And then as we move back up into the stomach, you can see tons of skin wrinkles and skin creases and stuff here in front of the thigh as you move back from the stomach closer to the thigh. And then as we move up, a little bit more of that right in front of the hip region. You can kind of make out the hip, but it's not super obvious. But as you move down, we can really see the nice muscle definition here in the thigh. We can also see that this striping here moves down from the upper side into the thigh, and then we continue to have a little bit of a striping effect moving down through the front of the thigh, but it's kind of more lightly placed, kind of like more subtle with the way it's added, whereas up here it's a lot darker and more, I would almost say, forceful with the way it appears. Down here it's a lot softer. But you can also see again that we have this lighter tone for the thigh, which looks really good, and there seems to be like a brownish wash potentially added to it, just adding a little extra color variation there. Also some nice transitioning to the lighter tone of the back of the thigh, some more skin wrinkles and stuff as you move down. You've got the knee right there, and then as you move down here into the front of the shin, you can see again we've got those nice greenish tones as well as a brown striping moving down through there, and you can really see again that there is a nice wash added, nice dark wash. You can definitely pick it up very nicely in the back of the calf right there. And then as you move down into the foot sculpt, that brown wash becomes very apparent. You can really see it here because the foot is absolutely loaded with that dark brown wash, which I think looks great on the figure. Nice scoots running down the front of the foot down into the toes. The nails again are painted with that nice glossy black. I think the paintwork of the feet look 100% as lifelike and realistic as it gets. Really beautifully done. And of course, as far as the articulation goes, moving to this point, we also have the midsection articulation, which allows you to kind of move the dinosaur a little bit left and right, also up and down. And this feels a lot smoother than previous ones as well. It's just a lot easier to move. We also have the addition of the articulated hip. That also moves out away from the body, but not super far, but you can see it does go a little bit. And then we also have the knee, which is actually also really smooth, forward and back, and can also swivel, adding even more articulation. Now you'll notice there is no articulation in the ankles or anything, and that's because, of course, these are the less articulated legs. The other legs do have more articulation. Then as you move up, you can see that we pick up this kind of striping effect as you lead out. Again, we have like that green that transitions down to a brown and then sort of stripes down. And then we also have some nice light browns and off-whites here for the lower part of the dinosaur. We also have the blacks and darker browns that pick up and then kind of stripe and pattern out the entire way here through the course of the tail, and that is a very nice, very long tail that does sport even more articulation. Because of course you've got the articulation right here, which can go left and right, up and down, and then you'll continue to see that same thing as you move out. You've got yet another joint right here, and then the remainder of the tail is a wire tail, so you can pose the end of the tail even more for your figure if you would like. As you move along the underside, you can see again we have that nice light tone with the what seems to be like a dark wash wash moving through the course of the underside of the figure. And then as we lead back here into the stomach and chest, you do have a nice, very vibrant brown that picks up kind of like an orangish brown for a period of time before we lead back into the blues. And if we take a look at the opposing side of the figure, you're really not going to see much of anything that would differentiate this side from the first side, because again, the figure is a fully posable figure, so it comes in kind of like that neutral position, and you can see everything looks just as nice, just as precise on this side as it did on the initial side. And then again, we have the alternate legs, which you can see the paintwork looks just as gorgeous as it did on the legs that are on it currently. But then, of course, the same thing down here for the feet. Really nice with the way that they've highlighted the scales with the wash and everything they've added. But you can see when it comes to the articulation, you do have a little extra, which these are stiff. I haven't moved these at all yet. You can see, of course, you've got the area of articulation right here, which can go forward and back and also swivel. And then you've got a little bit more when it comes to the ankle. Go up and down, left and right, move that area around very nicely. So you can, of course, switch the other legs out for these more articulated legs. You do have to recall, though, that the undersides do not have peg holes on these feet. Those are, reserved for the less articulated feet. So you're probably, if you're going to put it on the base, you're probably going to need at least one of the less articulated legs on it to apply it to the base. And speaking of said base, you can see, again, it's pretty much like your standard when it comes to a Beasts of the Mesozoic base. You've got the nice area of kind of like some rocky formations. You've got some nice vegetation, lots of really nice paintwork added, again, with variation of color, different variations of browns and stuff added to it, as well as variation to the greens here for the vegetation. You can see lighter and darker shades of green. It's got like a little stick over here, and of course the peg sticking up to apply the dinosaur to. You also have this little extra section over here that is applied, which you can see right there. You can kind of remove that if you'd like to, but of course it is here just to add a little bit more, I think, to the base, maybe a little more stability. But definitely a nice base for our absolutely gorgeous Albertosaurus. And just in case you were wondering if the figure can stand on its own, very clearly it can, and it does really, really quite nicely. As far as a size goes for our Albertosaurus, it is quite the nice sized figure for a length from the tail to the snout. You're looking at about 20¼ inches, or around 51½ centimeters. And then for a height, you are looking at about more like close to 8 inches, actually. I would say just under 8 inches, or around 20 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day Human Being next to our 1/18th scale Beasts of the Mesozoic Albertosaurus, and you can very clearly see the figure dwarfs everything here next to it. And this is a pretty common thing, especially being 1/18th scale. It's kind of to be expected that these figures would be pretty big. And to further show you that, we've got a Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus, which you can see can nice and easily fit underneath our Albertosaurus. And just in case you wanted to see a comparison with the Hammond Collection Carnotaurus, here is my repainted version, next to the Albertosaurus, which you can see they are kind of similar in size, honestly. I would say they're actually very similar in size, with the Albertosaurus maybe being slightly larger. We've also got a comparison here next to the Hammond Collection Irritator, just to give you an idea of a size next to that kind of middle-sized range figure, I guess you could call it, from the Hammond Collection. Then we've got a comparison here next to the Bistahieversur, also from the Beasts of the Mesozoic line, and you can see that our Albertosaurus is definitely a bit larger than the Bistahieversur. As well as a comparison here next to the Beasts of the Mesozoic Dryptosaurus, which you can see is also a bit smaller than our quite large Albertosaurus. We've also got a comparison here next to the Beasts of the Mesozoic Pachyrhinosaurus, since that's what we saw on the card, although this is actually the Fan's Choice coloration version, so it's not the same color that we saw on the card, but this gives you an idea of the size between these two. As well as a comparison with the 1/35th scale T-Rex. This is the size range that I feel like most people probably purchased because it's more convenient and it was a little bit cheaper, so the size range that I felt like would be a good comparison with the Albertosaurus. And then for one final comparison, we also have the beasts of the Mesozoic Teratophonius here next to our Albertosaurus, just to kind of give you one more idea of a size. Obviously, the Albertosaurus here is the second largest to the 1/18th scale Tyrannosaurs that we have out, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. I keep saying just Tyrannosaurs, but the Tyrannosaurus Rex is the only other figure right now that I can think of that is larger than this Albertosaurus. So, of course, I have more from Wave 3 to, unbox and review here on the channel, but as of right now, the Albertosaurus is definitely the second largest. I did want to bring in the T-Rex, the larger one, but I actually have it in a very awkward spot that I can't really get to because I've been moving things around. So I felt like these other figures are more commonly released figures. Most people kind of went with the 1/35th scale T-Rex, it seems. Not too many people went for the 1/18th scale, so I figured some of these more mid-sized Beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaur Series releases would probably be the better comparisons anyway. So this brand new Beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaur Series Albertosaurus is absolutely gorgeous. I think they did a great job on this, as they always do. The paint scheme and paint application of this one is also really nice. Of course, it looks very nice and natural, and I do love green on Tyrannosaurs. I don't know what it is, it's just always such a coloration that looks so good on Tyrannosaurs. All the way back to the Lost World Jurassic Park when they introduced the male Rex in a green color scheme. Again, I've been just pretty much in love with greens on Tyrannosaurs, probably even before that, but that definitely solidified it. But, even since I was younger, I remember when I was a younger child and I would be like drawing dinosaurs and coloring them and stuff, I would often make my Tyrannosaurs green, and I would also often give them red eyes, because when you're growing up, you just want your T-Rex to have that kind of mean, fierce look. So it's pretty cool that this Albertosaurus actually sports some really nice greenish tones as well as a red eye. But overall, I think the paint scheme is really nicely done. It's nice and natural, but at the same time looks quite flashy. The sculpt is absolutely out of this world. Again, really nicely portraying the Albertosaurus in all its glory, and I would say it's easily the best Albertosaurus in my collection. I didn't think I'd find one that would push out that PNSO version, but this version here definitely does for me. And again, you have, of course, all the articulation you know and love from this line, and it's actually somehow even smoother, I think, on this newest wave, or at least so far anyway, as far as this Albertosaurus goes. It's definitely smoother than it was in the past, so that's also a great thing. So overall, this is definitely a huge recommendation from me, and if you are interested in grabbing one for yourself, I will include a link in the description to exactly where you can do that, so make sure you check that link. Go grab this right before it ships, because they are about to start shipping soon. And also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.